welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing a requested video on what I keep in my fish medicine cabinet. So if y'all have seen my little cubby hole over here, it is just a storage unit type of thing with different cloth organizers, and that's how I keep my fish room looking pretty decent and organized. One of those I keep all my medications in, and so today I'm going to go over what I keep on hand, and these are things that if I run out of them, I automatically replace them just because you never know when you're going to need it. So one thing that I absolutely hate is when you have a sick fish all of a sudden and your local pet stores do not have the medication you need and you have to order it and wait. I absolutely hate when that happens, but it happens more often than not, especially around here in rural Kentucky. There's not a lot of pet stores, and the majority of them are chain owned and they don't carry most of the products I'm getting ready to show you. So let's get started with the first thing. Aquarium salt. I always have aquarium salt, and aquarium salt can be used in more than just one way. I use it for stressed fish. A lot of times when if I get a shipment of fish in or something like that, I'll add salt to their quarantine just because it helps calm down the fish, and it also is a really good thing to add for a sick fish, especially if you're working with possible bacterial issues. So I like keeping this around, and most of the time I just follow the directions on the back. For dosing, it's usually a tablespoon for every 5 gallons. So I usually follow that pretty close if there's something wrong with any of the fish. Another thing that I keep is Epsom salt. So Epsom salt and aquarium salt are different in how they retain fluid. Or how the fish retains fluid, I should say. Aquarium salt can cause the fish to hold on to more fluid. So in some cases, if the fish is ill, it can make them swell. And you want to be super careful about that with dropsy. So I use Epsom salt for dropsy. With dropsy, they are swollen, their body is retaining fluid, and Epsom salt works intracellularly to release that pressure. So it helps the fish get rid of the excess fluid, and it helps reduce the swelling, the same as it would in a person. So that is one thing that I keep on hand all the time, and I use it quite often in fish that have dropsy. It's also nice if you have a fish that has that's eggy, that can become egg bound or whatever. Sometimes Epsom salt can help her release those eggs. I've had to do that twice in the past. I think with Malachi. Malachi has become egg bound a year or two ago, and she was the one that I really thought I was going to lose from being egg bound, and Epsom salt really helped her with that problem. Next thing I keep is something that I really think all fish keepers should have just because it's so common, and that's Prosy. So I have probably 2 or 3 of these around the fish room. It's not very expensive, and especially when you're dealing with pet store fish, they tend to bring in flukes. So Prosy is a treatment that can treat flukes, tapeworm, flatworms, and I use this quite often as a preventative. Mostly I treat all my fish with Prosy regardless of where they come from. It doesn't matter if I get it from the pet store or if it comes from a dealer like King Koi or East Coast Ranchu or Dandy Orandas. It doesn't matter. I treat every fish in quarantine with Prosy, it will not hurt them, and it's extremely safe on your biological filter. So that's one thing that I always keep in the fish room, because you would be surprised how many fish have flukes and you don't know it. And if these things go untreated, it can actually kill the fish. So that is one thing that I definitely keep. The other thing I keep is a medicated food. So I do keep Hellshield, New Life Spectrum, and it treats internal parasites. And I found that it works very, very well in that one being, it doesn't harm your biological filter, and the fish actually ingest it. So it gets in the fish, and if there's any kind of parasite going on in there, it'll kill it. So that's also a really nice thing, especially if your fish is eating. I do like to use this because it's not as harsh as a medication, and it's really easy to feed. You feed it twice a day for 3 days, and that's a treatment. It's also a pretty small pellet, so even smaller fish can eat it. This is kind of what it looks like. It's very, very little. And I have had good luck with treating internal parasites with this as well. It's not cheap. I think I got this one for 20 bucks, I think. And it's not a very big container, but when you're just using it as medicated food, it lasts a really long time. So that is one thing I keep in the fish room. The other thing is, it's actually in this bag, and I'm not going to take it out because you'll find out in a minute. This is Methylene Blue. I keep this in a bag because if you've ever treated anything with Methylene Blue, it will dye everything blue. And I learned that really fast. If you get that on your hands, it literally takes over a month probably to get that stain out because it stays on you. If you get it on clothes, it's not gonna come out. And I don't use this for like in tanks. If I use this, I use it in a Sterilite tote, so it can't stain anything because there's nothing in there. This could potentially stain gravel or even silicone around the tank itself, so, and decorations and all things like that, so I don't do that. It can also be super harmful to plants, and it will hurt your biological filtration. So that's one thing you have to make sure you remove that because it can kill it. I use this for fungus. So, especially with breeding fish, eggs they tend to have a higher rate of getting fungus than I have seen with regular goldfish. So when that happens in goldfish eggs, I've only had that happen one time, but you have to be really, really careful about what type of medication that you treat them with, because eggs and young fry are super susceptible, and that medication can potentially be toxic to them. Methylene Blue is one of those that is not toxic, so at least to the fry themselves. So I think it's a wonderful thing to have, especially if you're a breeder. And even though it's blue and it's messy, and I always like wear gloves when I treat with it. I always have clothes on that I don't care get stained, because you just have to be super, super careful because you will get that all over you. But it's a really good thing to have in the fish room, and it works very well. I only did one treatment with the fry that had it the first time around, and it was gone. So it's really, really good to have. So the last two things that I have, they kind of somewhat go together. So this is Canaplex and Metroplex. So starting with Canaplex, I use this a lot for dropsy. And some people say it doesn't work, others say it does. in my opinion and what I've seen, Canaplex works 9 out of the 10 times that, at least I've seen it, it's worked. So I've had one fish with dropsy that this did not help, and it was just too far gone. So Canaplex, if you're dealing with bacterial dropsy, Canaplex is really, really good. The thing about Canaplex is that it is hard on the kidneys of the fish. So you really only need to use it exactly the way it says to on the bottle, because if you use it more than that, or if you overdose the fish, you can send them into kidney failure. You only dose the fish every 2 days for a maximum amount of 3 times. So it's not a very long treatment, but it can cause kidney failure if you use it more than you should. So don't do that. But I do really like Canaplex. I always have Canaplex. And then Metroplex. First of all, Canaplex is good for fungal and bacterial infections, and so it can treat dropsy, popeye, fin and tail rot, septicemia, things like that. And so that's really good to keep on hand, but you got to remember the kidney failure thing. Don't overdose the fish, and use it exactly how it says to. And then the other one is Metroplex. So Metroplex treats protozoan parasites and anaerobic bacterial diseases. And Metroplex is not as hard on the kidney of the fish. You can actually use Metroplex, let's see if I'm right, every 2 days for up to 3 weeks. So it's not nearly as hard as Canaplex. Sometimes if you're unsure if the dropsy was bacterial or if it was possibly a parasite, then I like to do both of them together, and that's completely safe. But you know, when you're dealing with dropsy, you have to work fast, and so sometimes I just treat them with both right out, because dropsy is a symptom of something else, whether that be a bacterial infection, a parasite, and if you don't treat it fast, you're going to lose the fish. So to me, treating them with both of those antibiotics is sometimes your only option. I never really run out of those. I always have those products, because I've had, the first time I ever had dropsy in a goldfish, I did not have these medications, and it scared me. And that was with JoJo a couple of years ago. She was my first goldfish that I had ever had dropsy. I had never had any fish with dropsy. I really had no idea how I was going to treat this fish. And, you know, when I started reading up, everybody was kind of Canaplex, maybe Canaplex, maybe Metro. And my fish stores did not carry Seacom products. And then PetSmart carried Seacom products, but only Prime. They didn't carry anything else. So you couldn't get it. I had to order it from Amazon, and thankfully then I had Amazon Prime, and I got it the next day, and I was able to save JoJo. But you know, now I don't have Prime, and even a couple hours can be detrimental for your fish if they have dropsy. You really have to act fast, and that's why I keep these. Like, I have at least two of these in the fish room all the time, because I feel like you cannot be over prepared when it comes to these fish. And so that's kind of the stuff that I keep pretty often. So Epsom salt, Aquarium Salt, Methylene Blue, Prosy, Hellshield, Canaplex, Metroplex, all that stuff is medication that I keep in the fish room all the time. I do not let myself run out of it, because as soon as you do, you'll need it, and you can't get it sometimes. So I hope that answered some of you guys' questions. That's all I have for you today, and I'll see y'all next time.